Karl-Friedrich Scheufele.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you.
It's a pleasure to see you.
Yes.
So I majored in art history when I was in university. Actually double majored in religion and art history. And I thought it was really interesting that usually a period which has been very hyperbolic is usually followed by a period of rationalism, right? So for example, Rococo, which I can't say I'm a huge fan of, was followed by neoclassicism, which I am a fan of, right?
Yes.
I think we both, we share our
We
appreciation.
probably share this.
Yeah, indeed. So I have come to characterize the last 2 or 3 years in watches as being a very frothy and hyperbolic moment where watches kind of went crazy. Maybe they were even a bit decoupled from their beauty as watches and became investment instruments. And a new era is emerging for me, and it's an era of rationalism, which I love. And I feel that there's two types of watches that will do very well in this period. One are watches that are exhibitions of incredible métier d'art. It's almost because we're so digital today, we want things that are human. And the other are watches that have a profound, authentic watchmaking value, right? Something innovative, real, backed oftentimes by external certification if possible. And I think there's no better brand than Chopard L.U.C. to embody both of these things.
When we started L.U.C. Now almost 30 years ago, the very first watch was a watch along these lines. The L.U.C. 1860, which is a very strong revival of
Amazing
this watch.
revival, yeah.
I would even call it an iconic revival.
Indeed.
In the last 2 years. But I think it fits perfectly into the period you just described, but also the deep craftsmanship that these watches embody just by principle and philosophy. Looking back, they were not always valued as much as today.
There's two things I'm going to quote other people, but I met John Mayer recently, and he said it frustrates him when people say it's grown on me, because the point was it was good to begin with, it just took you a longer time. And which I think is certainly kind of the case with L.U.C. And the other thing which I like is a quote by an American historian that says, "That which the son seeks to forget, the grandson seeks to remember." Right? And we have now really entered a phase where métier d'art, true watchmaking, real craftsmanship is so powerful. And so let's talk about the 1860, this revival. But in fact, I would say it's even eclipsed its popularity when it was first launched. And it's probably I think this is probably the most sought after, smaller size, classic size, 3-hand watch by the younger generation now.
Yes, you could say so, and we are facing facing some challenges producing a few more of these watches because we were overwhelmed by the demand.
This beautiful Guilloche masterpiece by Metal M, but then you've got this movement which you created in '96. The watch was released in '97. Geneva Seal masterpiece of finishing, and then cost certified as a chronometer as well.
It's one of the very first movements to be created again from scratch after a period of, I would say, dryness. There were no movements created like in the 20 years leading up to this movement.
Yes, everything from the quartz crisis till basically the 90s.
Yes, and we wanted to combine right from the beginning the Geneva Seal finish with the chronometer precision, all in one watch, and a very long power reserve on top. So we stacked 2 barrels and combined all of this with a micro rotor, and the result is, I think, still today, I think, very competitive in it. Also comparing to those who have seen the light of day in the last 2-3 years.
I totally agree. It's an absolutely breathtaking watch. I also respect the fact that in the revival version, you now removed the date. In the context of the 90s, actually, the date was very important. This was before smartphones.
Yes.
And you've also added the hacking function as well. Now, there's a watch that shares this base caliber that I have fallen in love with. And I would go so far as to say I think it is the single most beautiful classic men's tourbillon on the market. And so let's talk about the Flying T, and in particular the version that was launched this year in yellow gold, because it's stunning.
I had to put this on a back burner for quite a while because we had more important developments to do, and you know how it is, you have to make choices. But finally, for the 25th anniversary of L.U.C, I really relaunched this idea of combining the flying tourbillon with this movement, and I think yes, it became my all-time favorite L.U.C watch.
Me too.
What I really like about this watch is not only the fact that you have the tourbillon
So beautiful.
in a very detached, very beautiful form and shape here, but when you turn it around, you have a closed back, polished, highly polished, but you can actually open it and admire the movement.
Sublime.
And the beautiful hand engraved back with a famous beehive and the number of bees that vary from watch to watch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is a limited series of 10, so the number of bees are never the same. Collectors compare their watches now. So how many bees do you have? And you know.
You mentioned that there's an engraving in the back of this. And during the Cannes Film Festival, we did an event together talking about engraving and manual craft. Why was that important for you to do?
I really wanted to keep this tradition alive, and reason for which we decided to open a small workshop in-house to exercise this craft, and to a very high level, which you can see here with a dragon watch. The dial is totally hand engraved and has this incredible depth to it.
Wow.
Which you ask yourself, how can this be done by hand engraving?
You know, I met Natalie, who is one of the engravers that works with you in Fleurier, and she said something remarkable. She said that you gave her the opportunity to learn fluorescent engraving because she was actually initially an angler.
Yes. I'm always open to elevating, helping people to elevate themselves, and I believed, I very much believed in her. And now she is one of our, top engravers, and engraving movement parts, which is not the easiest part, because you must make sure that the movement part does not get twisted in any way.
It has a function.
Because it has a function.
Yes. You told me also another remarkable story, which is you met Christoph, who is your enameler.
Yes.
And you weren't actually sure what to do with him initially because there was no enamel workshop here. But you were like, you know what, let's build it together.
Yes, we had no enamel workshop. We had no real project set aside for an enamel dial watch. But again, I was impressed by what Christoph brought with him in terms of experience, and I suggested to him that he may install his workshop, and with our help, and it worked out very well. In fact, he's extremely busy now. If you look back at history, a beautifully made enamel dial cannot be invented otherwise. No modern technique can represent what an enamel dial represents today.
But I love that also because in the same ways you took the step to create a manufacturer even before it was necessary, you also took the step to bring these métiers d'art in-house before it was necessary. And this has placed you in an extraordinary position because now that we've entered this era where it's about authentic watchmaking, it's about craft, you have them both. Is this kind of an expression of what the future might hold? Because you've got an extraordinary three-dimensional engraving, and you also have an amazing L.U.C movement inside of it as well.
Definitely the combination of an interesting movement with a jumping hour, which allows you to have all the space in the world to express yourself on the dial, was a perfect combination. And obviously these watches will always remain rare because there's a limitation to how many we can make in a year. But I think it will keep up a tradition that if we don't take this responsibility, who will?
Absolutely. Will we ever see a engraved or enamel dial 1860 or Flying T?
I would not rule it out.
So we talked about métier d'art, but let's talk about watchmaking on a very fundamental level, which is also reliability. And you took it upon yourself to be part of Qualité Fleurier, which is the most stringent test in watchmaking in its history. Now, unfortunately, the two other people that were involved in that decided to not continue. But you decided rather than disbanding it, you would take it in-house, I mean, still certified by an external party. Tell me why that was important to you, and why do you want to pursue something that's so hard?
By defining what an L.U.C. movement had to include, I really set the stage for everyone in the company that there's no compromise. Speaking to Michel Parmigiani at one point, we kind of had the same idea at the same time, and we wanted to take this combination of finish, precision to another level by adding another component, which is the real life movement, like wearing a watch actually for a 24-hour day and then testing its precision along the way. And this was really the basis of Qualité Fleurier. And for us, it's still very meaningful, whether it is for testing new movements or making a rather few, but quite a number still over the years of Qualité Fleurier timepieces, like this one here. You have a beautiful finish, very similar to Poinçon de Genève, but always a little bit more on the modern side. You have the cost certification, but on top you are sure that the watch withstands everyday wear and tear. It's putting the bar very high, but it helps you in everything you do. And this is why we decided to internalize Qualité Fleurier and not let it go.
I love it. And the last thing I would ask you also, we've talked about craft, we've talked about tradition. Let's talk about technology, innovation, and the future. The use of a sapphire crystal gong was really representative of taking a minute repeater and adding an acoustic dimension I'd never heard before. And now you've applied it also to the strike point. Tell me about the courage it took to pursue that route, because no one else had ever done it before.
There were many moments where we tempted to call it a day.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, because while the mechanical side of things was almost totally developed, we were still waiting for the breakthrough when it came to the crystal gong. The theory was obviously there, but in practice, it was just very difficult to carve out the crystal gong at the same time as the crystal of the watch, and then to actually position it safely in place. We had to overcome a lot of difficulties.
Wow.
I mentioned it before, it's all about perseverance,
Ça va? Oui. Merci. Ah, bon, bah, c'est ok. Bon. Ah, voilà, là, elle marche. T'en as besoin pour tout de suite? Non, non. Je vais pas te la... parce que c'est une montre pour le client ou pas?
As I said, I think that one of the wonderful things about this era, it's an era of authenticity. And again, thank you so much. There are no watches that are more authentic than the ones that you create. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.